What's up, people? Welcome to week 4. I am Mr. Byers, as I have been this whole time. Hope you had a great weekend. It's Monday. I'm recording on Monday. I'm posting on Monday. The week is beginning on Monday. Some of you are finishing your work from this past week. That's great. I want to go ahead and let you know that I will be completely updating the grade book this week. You'll get every single thing thing that's been turned in will be graded before this weekend. You will, if you are failing currently, if you're going to be failing by the time I grade everything, if you're failing after I graded everything, then you will be receiving an update, an email from me saying, "Hey, you're failing. I have to put your name on this like spreadsheet and send it to the school." That everybody in all classes are reporting like current like who's failing. I mean, because this is like week 4, which is a quarter of the way through this semester. The semester is only 16 weeks. This is like one quarter already. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Oh my God. It's as crazy as my hair. Look at this. I took a a bathroom sink shower this morning after running and exercising, and then I just let it, I just let it do its thing. I don't even really dry it. And so then it turns into this like poof thing. And then afterwards, days later, my hair has no body. It has not like no body, like as in like nobody to love it, because I love it, but it has like no body. It just goes flat completely. Anyways, so I mean it's not as cool as hair as Uncle Jesse's hair or Danzig, if you can read that, which he's not Danzig, but that's what's funny about it, because if you look Danzig up, they have very similar hair. Very nice. Um, okay, so anyways, if you are failing after I graded everything, you can still be passing if you turn in your assignments. You will get late points for them, okay? But you can turn your grade around. So be on the lookout for that. And if you don't have any, if you are missing some of your work, you need that, like you haven't gotten zeros for it yet, but it hasn't been turned in yet. You need to go ahead and get all that turned in, okay? All right, so this week we are going to be right here. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to discuss essay 1, and I'm going to show you about some research, kind of research, okay? And I don't think actually I'm going to go over punctuating quotes and titles. I think we're going to save that. I'm going to save that for drafting essays. That's a better place for it, okay? This week, though, we are going to be working on an outline for essay 1. All right. Now, while you're working on essay 1 outline, you will need to also be reading your independent novel. Do not forget about that. You should be reading some every day and each week. Okay. All right. So this week, we'll be working out of week 4, which is where you have the outline drop box. Hold on, let me move this thing. I don't know why this thing is here. Okay. Move. Thank you, buddy. All right, I need to upload. I'm going to upload 2 things for you. One is going to be the outline template. So you should just template and the example. I'm going to demonstrate for you today. I'm going to show you today a example of the outline that you are creating. Okay. So you will see here both, look, the actual outline and then the example outline. I will be showing both of these to you today. We'll be working on this today. The things I go over today are meant for you to duplicate and do exactly as I do them. It's not suggestions. These are like, this is actually how you should do it. All right. So first, let's review essay 1. Okay. So if you recall the week 2 PowerPoint where I called it human, all too human. Oh, isn't that beautiful? I want a t-shirt that says this, that has this right here on it as well. You are going to be writing a paper. Essay 1, you're writing a paper about a school of philosophy and how it relates to one of the stories we read in Unit 1. and how it relates to you on a personal level. Okay. So you're going to be explaining the philosophy. You're going to be relating it to one essay. One short story, and then to yourself. All right. Now, if you recall on our assignments sheet, this has the stories that we read. We read As a Woman by Paula Stone. We read Outsider by Noah Trevor. And we read Cat Person by Kristen Rupinian. And then The Ecstasy of Consent wasn't a short story. That's an editorial. Okay. So you're really writing it about Cat Person, Outsider, or As a Woman. All right. Some people were sending me emails about like not sure where to find Cat Person because their textbook hadn't arrived, but I didn't in the lecture. I did demonstrate how to find Cat Person online. Okay. So since I do take a lot of my own personal time to make these recordings, these are not required by the school to make. I choose to make them. I do really expect people to watch them. And so when you ask me questions about things that I went over or demonstrated specifically in the lecture, my general first response will be, did you watch the lecture? Because I did already go out of my way once to demonstrate this. Again, I'm not asking that question to be like a dickhead. It's just that I dedicated time to go over a lot of stuff in the lectures. So I want to first know that like you watch the lectures. Now, sometimes people watch the lectures and they just don't understand, or they don't get it, or they need more information, which is totally cool. So I do suggest that if you watch a lecture and then you still have questions about it, then it would probably be best when you email me to say things like, "Hey, Mr. Byers, so after watching your lecture, I have this like follow-up question," or "I watched the lecture, but I didn't really understand this. I watched the lecture, but," and then you can ask me what you want to ask me. So that way I already know, okay, so they first did step one. They watched it. Now they're essentially saying that like my explanation wasn't, it wasn't clear enough, which is totally fine. And then I have no problem further explaining things. I just first want to know that you did initially watch the lecture. Maybe you can say, "Hey, Mr. Byers, I watched the lecture, but I couldn't figure out how to find Cat Person online. I searched it, but it just did not pop up." Okay. All right. So these are the stories, Cat Person, Outsider, As a Woman, that you can use for this essay. All right. And then I gave you some schools of philosophies for essay one: existentialism, stoicism, hedonism, Marxism, Taoism, relativism. If you have a different school of philosophy that you would like to kind of explore, then email me that and ask me. Okay. Also, you're not quoting in your paper. You don't quote my PowerPoint. I want you to. All right. So that's not going to be it. Now, for the essay one, you are going to need two outside sources, which is listed which is indicated on the outline. Okay. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go on to week 4 and download the template. Okay. And when you get the template, it looks like this. And you can insert your name. You can double click here and put your name instead of Smith. You can put your name. Let's say your name is Lee, last name Lee. Okay. And your first name is Gerald Lee. Okay. There you go. Title. I would just do your school of philosophy in the short story. Okay. Existentialism. And I'm going to do the short story, the story of an hour. I'm picking a story that you didn't read, or you might have read it in high school. So that way I don't I don't want to hand feed you exactly what you should be writing about in your paper. So I'm picking the story of an hour. All right. So introduction. So this essay you're going to write is going to have 5 paragraphs. We'll have an introduction. We're going to have a paragraph about the school of philosophy that you are writing about. We're going to have another paragraph that's about the short story. And then we're going to have another paragraph that is about your personal connection. And then you're going to have your conclusion. Okay. So here's your outline. And then you just go in and you fill in all the blanks. So like school of philosophy, you would, if you're like, for my sample paper, I'm doing existentialism. Okay. And then for my short story, I'm doing the story of an hour. Okay. And then for my life, I'm going to relate it to raising my daughter. Woo woo. Okay. And then on my sample, I did write a basic thesis statement. You're going to try to, on your outline, you're going to go ahead and try to formulate a complete sentence that will be your thesis statement. Now, this doesn't have to be the exact wording, and you might modify some in your paper, but I want you to go ahead and try to format it into a complete statement where you are combining this, this, and this. Okay. So here's my example. An understanding of feminist existentialism explains why Miss Mallard's momentary feeling of autonomy was orgasmically meaningful to her, and that his deeper understanding should be considered when raising young women in the world. Here, I state what my school philosophy is. I'm emphasizing even more with feminist existentialism. So that's connected. So this right here is connected here. And then I reference my story, the story of an hour, with a reference to Miss Mallard. Okay. So you are writing this essay like I've read them, because I've read your 3 stories. All right. So like I don't need explanation. I don't need background. I don't need any of that. I just need a reference. Okay. So like you will say the title of the story in your introduction, but you might not use the title of the story in your thesis, especially if you're just talking about one character. Now, if you're talking about the story as a whole, then you might have the title of the story in your thesis statement. And then I have the deeper understanding should be considered when raising young women in the world. Okay, this part right here connects to my daughter. Okay, so this one thesis statement lays out what I'm going to be discussing in my paper. I have one paragraph that's about feminist existentialism. I'm gonna have one paragraph. Well, actually, I might actually end up deleting feminist part because I realize my body paragraph is not really about feminist existentialism. It doesn't matter. So existentialism, I'm going to be discussing Miss Mallard specifically, and I'm going to be relating it to my daughter. Okay. All 3 things here are now placed in one complete sentence that lays out the order of which my paper is going to flow. The first idea in my thesis statement is going to be the first idea here that's expressed in my paper, my first paragraph. Okay. Paragraph 1, body paragraph 1 relates to the first thing mentioned in my thesis. Body paragraph 2 is going to be about story of an hour, which I'll be discussing mostly Miss Mallard, the character. And then my third body paragraph, personal connection, raising a woman, my daughter. That's going to be this one. Okay. So, thesis statements should really flow, and they should set up the organization of your paper. Okay. In AP language, we call this the line of reasoning. All right. And you should already know all this. This is like 1101. This is like high school and 1101 information already. All right. You have your thesis statement, which is one complete sentence that has a reference to all of the main ideas from your paragraphs that you'll be writing in your essay. Then each body paragraph should follow the order of your thesis statement. Okay, it's very organized. It's very organized. Okay. So then you need to have two secondary sources. So you're going to have a quote from secondary source 1 in the paragraph about the school of philosophy. And then you're going to have a quote from secondary source 2 in the paragraph about your own personal connection. In the paragraph about the short story that you'll be discussing, you should have a quote from the story. Okay. So there will be 3 quotes in your paper. Now, one of those quotes can be a paraphrase, which is like essentially you rewriting it in your own words. Okay. All right. So existentialism. So I kind of already completed this. Okay. What I did was 1 or 2 sentences to explain it in your own words. Oh, I didn't do that one actually. Okay. This school of philosophy looks at finding one's purpose in a world where we are not certain about anything. Okay, something like that. So you try to do it in your own words first. Okay, that might not, that you don't need to do multiple sentences. Just try to do one quick one in your own words. Okay, quote from secondary source 1. So so I for my sources, if I was, now I have prior knowledge of this philosopher. Okay, so I know that like this book right here, Being and Nothingness by this philosopher Sartre, is like the definitive source to go to. Okay, but like some of y'all might not have, you might not know like specific books. Okay, so like you might just want to look up something like I might use the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. All right, you might do something like understanding existentialism. Okay, and you might come across the University of Tennessee at Martin Existentialism from the Encyclopedia of Philosophy, the Ethics Center. What is existentialism? Okay, and so you might read this and be like, "Oh, okay, okay, I'm kind of understanding it. Sure, cool, okay." The Ethics Center. Okay, all right. So let's say you're reading this, and you read about being in nothingness and all this, and you don't necessarily find a direct quote. Maybe like you read all this and you're like, oh, okay, like yeah, I got an idea now what this is about, and there's like one specific idea that you really like. All right, then on your outline, if you want, you can paraphrase. You can paraphrase it and write something like, okay, so there is being and being. Lowercase being is merely going through the motions of life, eating, sleeping, working, living passively, while capital B being is choosing how you live, choosing how your life will go, and actively living your life. All right, let's say like that is, now in your outline, you don't use quotes here. All right, because this is not a quote. So instead, I would change quote to paraphrase. Paraphrase from secondary source 1. Okay. So then here you have to put your source citation. Source citation. So I paraphrased, meaning I rewrote some of these ideas into my own words from this website. Okay. So now I need to provide the citation. Now, if you go back to our page, if you go back to our Blackboard, okay, if you look under lessons, there's a link here that says tutoring and EasyBib. Click on that. Click on EasyBib. And it will take you here, which I showed week 1. Okay. So I'm going to do create citations. And for this, I'm going to do a website. So then I'm going to go to I'm going to copy my web link. Copy. I'm going to go to website here. I'm going to put paste, search. While it's doing that, I'm going to see if there is a author. Nope. Okay, there's not really an author listed. Okay. Yep, this is it right here. Continue. Okay. Oh, there actually is an author. Cool. There's authors listed. All right, great. This looks good. Okay, yes, complete citation. It's going to ask me to view a message. So that's going to be viewed. I'm going to pause for a moment while this is viewed, and I'll pick back up in just a second. Okay, so this did it. It went ahead and made my citation, which is great. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. Let's see here. Copy citation. Go back to my paper. And I'm going to paste it. Okay. So there we go. I don't like how that looks. There we go. All right. So, but look though, hold on. One thing. When I paste this, there it is. This needs to be in italics because that's how it's supposed to look. All right. Okay. So I paste that, boom. That one's done. All right. Then I do the same thing for my short story. All right. Which I've already done. I'm not going to go through that with you. I've already done it. Story of an hour. Here we go. I'm going to copy this over. All right. So my big theme or a little theme of the story. You might be talking about the whole story as a whole. Remember last week I discussed big theme, the theme of the whole story. Or maybe you're just doing one little theme that's mentioned part of the story. Okay. So I want you to identify this. I'm doing big theme. I'm doing big theme. Big theme. So I'm deleting the rest of that. I'm doing big theme. All right. The whole story is about this one big theme. The greatest state of being a person can ever experience, whether a man or woman, is autonomy. Autonomy. All right. Having freedom to live your life. Having freedom. Freedom to live one's life the way one has chosen. Okay, boom. So then quote from the story, for my story. Now her bosom rose and fell tumultuously. She was beginning to recognize this thing that was approaching to possess her, and she was striving to beat it back with her will, as powerless as her 2 white, slender hands would have been. When she abandoned herself, a little whispered word escaped her slightly parted lips. She said it over and over under the breath. Free, free, free. The vacant stare and the look of terror that had followed it went from her eyes. They stayed keen and bright. Her pulses her fast. The coursing blood warmed and relaxed every inch of her body. This is the story about a woman who, in the late 1800s, she finds out that her husband has died allegedly on a train, and she has an orgasm at the idea that now she will not have to be essentially his servant and live for him. She can live for herself. So that is the quote that I want to use. This is too long of a quote. I'm not actually going to use this whole quote in my paper. But in my outline, it's okay. In my outline, fine. But in my paper, I will be cutting it down. I'll be reducing it. I might be paraphrasing it, whatever. But for my paper, but for my outline, it's fine. Okay. Now, source citation. Okay, so that story, along with all the stories that you've read, I'm sorry, wait a minute, hold on, no. Only Cat Person is in the literature book, okay? So what I need to do is I'll provide you 3 sources. I'll provide you the next thing I'll post, which you'll see by the time this is posted, is you'll see a document that has the proper citations for each of the 3 stories. Because one story is from 2 of them are from different books. One's called uh, uh, Born a Crime. The other one is As a Woman, and then there is Cat Person, which is from the textbook. So I'll make those 3 citations and then I'll post them in a Word document, which you will see by the time you're watching this video. And then in that case, you can just copy and paste. Okay, you can just copy and paste. And you can copy and paste and put that here for source citation. Okay. Now, when it comes to the personal connection, raising a woman. So again, I just want you to, here, I want to show you my example. All right, I want you to put some notes about like what this means to you. So, event in your life, personal beliefs. Raising my daughter to live for herself. Okay. Now I need to find another quote. And it can't be the same quote that it can't be from the same source you've already used. If you've used an encyclopedia philosophy kind of website, then I want you to find a quote from an actual other source. All right. So like you can do something like philosophers quotes about, about existence. Okay. Now, you cannot, if you find a quote that you like, you cannot quote like something like brainy quotes. You can't do that. All right. Let's just say you like, as far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. Okay. You cannot say, quote, brainy quote. If you quote this, all right, then you have to find the original source. All right. So like, let's say I like this Albert Camus one. And I gotta hurry up because I'm about to run out of time. The only way to deal with an unfree world. Okay. I'll start to. Okay. Where did Albert Camus say? All right, this comes from the myth of Sisyphus. All right, great. So now I need to actually quote the myth of Sisyphus book. All right, so go to my citations here, create citation. Well, you are going to do the book. We're going to do title, The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. Okay. Myth of Sisyphus and other essays. Yep, we'll do that one. Cite. Don't care. Okay. All right, here we go. Continue. We're going to do the whole book. All right, complete citation. All right, there we go. So that's where your next quote came from. I know you found it online, but you can't. Listen, there's a lot of. When I was in college, I was I had an internship where I was an editor. This person wrote this book, and they at the beginning of every part they had quotes from like which they got from brainy quotes. Okay, but it was my job. I was assigned where I had to find the original source for every single one of those quotes. And then I had to write the works cited page for this book that was being published. And so that's what I did all summer. There was like 52 quotes, and I had to find this. I had to find, them all. So a lot of people do that. A lot of people get their quotes from these quote websites, but you can't quote the quote websites. That looks cheap. So you have to actually cite the original source, which is what you're doing here. Okay. Now, my source came from a book called The Second Sex. Oops. By Simone de Beauvoir, The Second Sex. All right. The quote that I have right here in my example. All right. So, like, I need to quote The Second Sex. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to do create citation. I'm going to do a book. I'm going to do The Second Sex. Beauvoir, Vintage Classics, sure, cite. Continue. Okay. The whole book. Yep. London, United Kingdom. All right. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to copy it. Put it in my example. So I'm going to delete that. Oh, I did the wrong one. Copy citation, dude. This one. All right. Cool. So I have my quote that I'm not going to use all of it. All right. I'm not going to use all of it, but I'm going to summarize it or paraphrase it, whatever. All right. And then conclusion is blank. I don't need anything in the conclusion for your outline. So this is the outline that you are creating, okay, this week. I would copy it all, make sure it's all the same. 12, because you're doing a lot of copy and pasting, and there's going to be different fonts and different sizes. So I would just select all and go ahead and make sure it's all the same. There we go. Yep. All right. So you have your introduction, you have your existentialism, you have your story you're gonna be talking about, analyzing, and then your personal connection. You're writing a thesis statement where you combine all those things together in one complete sentence. Then body paragraph 1 correlates to A in your introduction and the first part of your thesis statement. And in it, you have 1 to 2 sentences in your own words explaining it. And then you have either a direct quote or a paraphrase quote from an outside source. And then you have that source listed here in the citation. The next one, we have the short story of an hour, which is the same one from up here. And that is referenced in your thesis statement. You have discussion. Are you talking about a big theme or a small theme? And what is that theme? Find a quote from the story that relates to that theme. Okay. And then you need a source. Again, I'm going to provide a document with all 3 of the citations for each of the stories. All you'll need to do is copy and paste the correct one and put it there. And then the last one is going to be personal connection, which is connected to C from your introduction. Oops. And is referenced in your thesis statement. And then you talk about how it relates to your life. You have a second source that you are going to connect from the same school of philosophy that relates to what you're talking about, and then that source. All right. And then nothing for the conclusion. Just say it's conclusion. All right. This is what you would be submitting by Sunday night. All right. If you have any questions or you have any problems or anything like that, please let me know. You need to be using the lesson 11. Well, lesson 11. Not lesson 11. What? Lesson 4. Here's where you'll find my example that I just showed you and the blank document. So you can use this as a template. All right. When you're done, you'll upload it here. You'll also see, by the time you watch this, you'll see a document that has the citations. It has a document with the 3 citations that you of the short stories that you're writing about. One of those, whichever one you're writing about, copy and paste it. And then here, underneath lessons, is where you find the EasyBib link, and you should use that. Okay. Just make sure that when you're copying and pasting your citations, notice, look, see this? This has the titles in italics. Okay. So I might say copy, but when I go to my paper, I got to make sure that when I hit paste, I'm doing the option that has them correctly italicized. See, this one is not italicized. See how the Mythosiphus is not italicized? That's incorrect. But this one is italicized. All right. So you got to make sure that you pick the correct one. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.